Testing. Okay. And then what is Dan's email? It's right in here.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello.
Hey. Did you have the opportunity to watch any of the videos that I made?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I watched everything you sent me.
Really?
I said, yeah.
What? And you still made the call today.
I especially enjoyed the video about changing your name.
Thank you.
Because it's just a whole roller coaster.
Welcome to the ADHDan podcast.
It goes where it goes.
Today I have with me Griffin Hammond. Griffin, I just want to thank you again. I know I've said it 100 times, but thank you for your time today.
Of course, yeah. I love your setup that you have for the podcast. I'm excited to join you, even if it's remote.
Yes. I don't know. I think remote, it kind of adds an extra layer because I like to set up, I call it a dummy, but I don't know. It's a unique feeling.
I'm very curious about this dummy. What is inside the shirt that makes it that you got everything standing up so perfectly?
So it's actually a Halloween skeleton.
Ah.
Yes, that I decapitated the skull from it. A few Phillips screws, I took those out and just propped an iPad up there.
Yeah.
I actually was looking into a Pedco Ultra clamp to do that, but I had a reflector clamp that works pretty well. So.
Nice, yeah. I'm very impressed.
Oh, and I also wanted to thank you for your legal advice last year.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer. Legal advice. Which advice was helpful for you?
The copyright. When we were talking about selling the DVDs.
Yeah.
Which I'll probably cut this part.
Well, I was just going to add that my rule of thumb with copyright is always just like, don't piss people off. Like, generally, if no one's mad, then no one's going to care if you are infringing on a copyright.
Right.
Or lightly infringing.
Yeah, it's definitely a gray area. When I saw, so I typically watch the podcast, your podcast, Hey Indy Filmmakers, which check that out. I'll definitely link that. I watch it in the morning with my coffee. If I see one's up, I'm like, okay. Well, I turned that episode on and spit out my coffee. I was like, his question from Dan?
About me. We did get a question from Dan about copyright.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was crazy. So, yeah, you owe me a new living room rug, but that's besides the point.
We have a lot of liability problems on the podcast. We cause a lot of damage in people's homes, apparently.
Mm-hmm. So I just feel that there are so many topics, and I sent you kind of a breakdown, but primarily I would really like to know, what about video sparked your interest? Why did you decide to go this route?
I was very interested in video in high school. I think it's because all my friends were in like the TV class, and so we started doing that. But I think for me, it was very quickly learning how powerful editing is. That, I mean, you just learn it as a teenager, and you start playing around, and you realize like the right music paired with the right shot can make someone cry pretty much on command. And I think I'm sure a lot of video professionals have learned this early in their lives, that like pretty much you can get an A on every project if you just replace the paper with a video, like, because video is so compelling. So I think I was drawn to how powerful of a medium it is. And then it's also great for me because I'm not an artist. I can't draw, but I'm very mathematical. And so I love frames and f-stops and shutter speeds and all these and even just editing is very mathematical. Like, set the opacity to 80%, set the resolution to 105%. I just love all the numbers. And so it's like a way to use my math brain to do something artistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I read a quote recently that said something about when you're shooting, you're fighting the script. When you're editing, you're fighting the shooting. So it's kind of like each stage kind of sets it like it's a new start almost. So you can kind of really shape it in each stage. I love that.
And editing is especially fun when you're a kid because all of your shots suck and your lighting sucks and your sound sucks and you don't have any of the right equipment. But you can edit and you can play. You can spend infinite time playing around in the edit, especially when you're young. And so I think for the beginning of my life as a video professional, I considered myself a really talented editor because it was always like covering up your mistakes. And eventually, I feel like it was growth in my career that I eventually felt like a good shooter. And now I probably feel like I enjoy the shooting part more than the editing because I don't have to cover up my as many mistakes anymore.
Actually, I almost forgot. You have a package?
I do. I received this package in the mail yesterday.
Okay. I was going to tell you if you wanted to open it pre-show just for safety's sake, because we've never met. I mean...
Yeah, like I don't know what's in this.
No. I mean, I don't know. If you watch any of my videos, you're probably like, oh, this guy's crazy. Why did I agree to this?
Let's see. Oh, right away I see your face. There's a sticker here.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Wait, what is this? There's a whole camera in here? What is happening?
I had to go over the top. And I thought about it today. There could possibly be an SD card in there, but it's yours.
Okay, there's a lot of great things happening here. For one, it says Griffin Hammond, DJ Kettlecorn, which you're familiar with my high school, or I guess I was in college. I don't know. This is my, I was a DJ at a bowling alley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was on Indy Mogul, I believe. I think you mentioned that.
And I've never even seen this Lumix camera before. The Panasonic Lumix FZ8.
Yeah, which the zoom is broken, or either the zoom or the focus. I can't remember.
Well, and I love the look of it because it's very reminiscent of it. It like instantly feels nostalgic, even though I've never seen this camera before. It looks similar in color and styling to a Toshiba camera I had as a teenager called the PDR M1, and I love that camera. I just feel like this is probably like not far off in terms of era. It's a beautiful little camera.
Yeah, I'm glad I held on to it.
And then also there's one more thing in this box, as I'm sure you know.
Yes.
There's a Red Bull in here.
Yes. I am in no way sponsored, affiliated with Red Bull. I just enjoy Red Bull.
So do I need to open this up and drink it?
You don't have to. No. I'll put one in your dummy hand, though, for, wow.
I mean, I should at least taste it. I don't know if I've had a Red Bull in like 10 years or something. When I was in college, I would drink the sugar-free ones, which I thought tasted pretty good. Like they almost tasted like pineapple juice or something.
I get that. It probably would be good mixed. And I'm not I don't drink alcohol much, so...
Yeah. And it's actually better than I remember. This is pretty good.
I love it. So, okay, so back to, you were kind of talking about how when you were younger, and anyone who is younger is able to really spend more time with edits and really dive into that. And it feels as though, at least for me, as you get older and you have client work, then you have deadlines and things like that. That's actually a really good segue to news, because I think that was the first time I ever reached out to you via Instagram, and I asked you something about making news tutorials or something, or talking about that. And I did see recently with your streaming, you talked about the terminology, SOTs, VOs, stingers.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So maybe go into that a little bit. Tell me, because you're still involved with news to an extent with the Recount. You told us what started the new, or just video. Now, what pushed you in the news direction?
Right. Well, and I took a weird kind of backdoor route into news, which I'll explain. It kind of started with me failing out of film school. I was at New York University, and I was just not mature enough at 18, 19 years old to like go to class. I am a good student. I am a smart guy, and I managed to fail out with a 1.8 GPA in film school. But I think part of it was that I was probably recognizing that I didn't really fit into where the school was pushing me, that this was all preparing you to like go to Hollywood and be part of like a corporation that makes a movie, like working with 10,000 people. And I like to work on my own. And I don't even think I understood yet that documentary and like one man band sort of video production was even a thing that you could do. So then I went to another university, Illinois State University, where I started to learn a lot more about documentary production. I joined TV10, which was their live news program. I mean, pretty much in that program, it wasn't a film school. It was a video program. So you had to do television news to graduate. And so I learned a lot of quick turnaround editing and how to shoot quickly and efficiently. And I think that's where I realized, like, oh, this is what I like. I like going out on my own, telling a story, turning it around really fast. And then learned a lot about documentary and realized, oh, I can go out and make my own films. And then did go make my own film, Sriracha. And weirdly, that got me a job at Bloomberg Television. They were like staffing up a new division to cover politics. And someone over there was like, I like the way this film looks. Surely if you can make hot sauce look fun, you could probably like make politics look fun. And so it's just weird that like all of my colleagues in college, to get into television news, what you do is like you go work the midnight shift in a small market like Peoria, Illinois or something. And then maybe you move up to a larger market like Milwaukee. And then, and you know, I don't know, maybe if your goal is to get into national news, you get there eventually. And I found this weird backdoor way where I worked like corporate video jobs, then made my own film, then started working at Bloomberg Television. But I'm not like a journalist by training, really. I think when I got into news, I kind of thought like, am I missing a class? Like I never took like journalism ethics or something. Like it's like the first time I'm on the campaign trail asking people questions, I'm just thinking like, am I breaking any rules? Is there something I'm supposed to know about how I approach this? And I think over time I've just learned like, just be honest and curious, and I think that's most of it.
Yeah, I think I started out with video in high school, VHS to VCRs, right. Editing that way, and then it was just always a hobby. So as I got older, I just did different jobs, but I ended up working for my local news for a little over a year, about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful that I did that because it really, so many things. One, connections in the area, just people that I never would have met, and now I'm helping them with video projects. But also that quick turnaround that was partially, I think it helped me because I could spend an eternity on an edit, but I think that's part of the reason why I left, because it was so difficult. I just hated pushing things out, that quick.
Right.
I just couldn't spend the time.
It gets you comfortable with the idea of putting out imperfect work, which I think is an important value for people in our profession, that like the more you do it, you learn that you can always make a video better. You can always spend 5% more time and make it a fraction of a percent better. And I think when I made Sriracha, I kind of realized like I'm 95% done with this film. And if I really want to keep nitpicking at it, I could spend another 3 months on this thing. But like if the film is available now in this form that most people would think is 100%, and I only care about a couple things, like why am I depriving my audience of this film for 3 months if it's just to do some silly extra things that I think are kind of cool? So I think learning in news that like you're always putting out work that's 80% there, 90% there because that's all you had time to do. But that's still valuable to the audience.
I heard that George Lucas said, a film is never finished, only abandoned. I don't know if that was George Lucas or if he just got credit for it, but I think that's very, very accurate.
It sounds true, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what about... So the Recount is that owned by Bloomberg or?
No, the connection to Bloomberg is that when I worked at Bloomberg Television, I was working for a man named John Heilman, who, if you watch MSNBC, you may see him sometimes as a pundit on various TV shows. He also has a show on Showtime called The Circus. So he's just a guy that's been on television for a long time, been on the campaign trail as a journalist for a long time, and just knows a lot about how politics work. And it was fun working with him at Bloomberg because we traveled together a lot and we just became pretty good friends and work well together on the campaign trail. And he likes the way that I make him look on camera. Like he believes that I'm very talented, which is nice to have someone in my corner like that. And he started his own journalism company called The Recount back in 2019. And I was freelancing. I had been freelancing after the 2016 election. My job at Bloomberg ended with the election. And but actually, that was a great timing for me. I got to spend a few years like traveling the world doing freelance projects, and it was going really well. And I honestly didn't need a full-time job, but John was like, hey, I'd love for you to come work with me, and also I can give you health insurance. And I was like, yeah, maybe that would be nice now that I have a child. And,
say no more, health insurance.
Yeah. So I started working at The Recount, and it's been a fun company to work for because it's news, but it's a startup, so we can do things the way we want to do it, and there's like there's pressure in being a startup, but there's also no pressure because like no one needs us yet. Like no one's relying on The Recount. I mean, some people are, but you know, we have more room to mess up, which is kind of fun being in a startup, like iterating and trying new things. And so my job has changed a lot in the last few years, and it's been fun.
So is that your primary job now? Do you still freelance at all?
I do a few freelance gigs on the side, but I don't have a ton of time to do that. I try to only do like a handful a year. My primary income is all from The Recount right now.
What got you started with YouTube?
I'm trying to think of what even got me into YouTube in the first place. I feel like for a long time I didn't even like YouTube. I was like on Vimeo all the time. I'm trying to remember like when my first videos must have been on YouTube. I think some of the first videos I put on my channel were like my TV 10 stories from college because I think I realized like, oh, I need some content on my brand new YouTube channel in the year 2005. And so I threw some of those things on there. It was just like silly college videos I was making at first. And then eventually my friend Justin Johnson, who I knew through filmfights.com. Filmfights was this website that still exists, but I was very active on it in college, where you just submit. It's like a contest. It was like a contest every week, and we'd come up with like, hey, everyone make a film noir, and it has to be like titled this, or it has to have this prop. There were certain requirements. No prizes, just you make a video, you have like a week to do it, and we'd all look at each other's work and give each other feedback. A great learning ground. It was a chance to try new things and get some important feedback. The feedback was always like, hey, have you thought about buying a tripod? Because no one had good image stabilization back then. And so I learned a lot there. And then Justin, this guy that ran the website, we became pretty good friends just through the internet. And he ran for a while a channel on YouTube called Indy Mogul. And Indy Mogul was purchased by YouTube, like by Google. Actually, this might have been before Google even owned YouTube. I don't know the timeline.
Hold on a second. Was it Justin? What's his last name, if you don't mind
Johnson.
saying?
Justin Johnson.
Okay.
And Eric Beck ran the channel together. But after running it for several years, when they were being purchased by Google, they decided that was a good time to step away from the channel. And so They loved this channel though, and they didn't want it to just die, and they wanted someone they could trust to run it. So Justin said, would you like to come do this? And he had offered me a few jobs over the years, and I kept turning him down because I worked at State Farm Insurance at the time. I had like a pretty nice like video job at a corporation. I got to make like some really fun, essentially documentary assignments. I was essentially like a news guy in a company telling the stories of that company. And but finally, I was like, this sounds like a pretty cool gig, and maybe it'll move me to New York. I should probably take this. So I started running this channel, Indy Mogul, and that's just where I built a big audience for myself. I mean, the channel already had an audience. I grew it some more, but it put my face in front of people, and so people started to, it helped me call myself a filmmaker, because like I was teaching filmmaking on a channel. I started making my own film while I was running that channel, and kind of developed my, I don't know, it was like a springboard for my career there.
Mm-hmm. Around what time did this happen, like looking at the news side of it? So the progression, I guess. Well,
let's see, I graduated college. I actually went to, I got a master's as well. So I graduated in 2009, and then was working at State Farm from like 2008 as an intern until like 2011. Then 2011, I started running Indy Mogul, and I did that through 2013. I made Sriracha in 2013. And then in 2014, Bloomberg started staffing up this new Bloomberg Politics division and hired me. It was confusing, too, because I got a call. I had been doing a bunch of media interviews that week because there was like a lawsuit at the Hoi Fong Foods factory. Like there were people in the community could swear they could smell the hot peppers. And so the city was trying to like shut them down. And at the time, I was the world expert on Sriracha hot sauce because I'd made the documentary. And so I think I had just gotten off the phone with NPR doing an interview. And then I get a call from this guy who runs Bloomberg Business Week, the magazine. And so I just assumed he was calling to interview me about Hoi Fong Foods. And so he was because he was talking about my film too. He was like, "Oh, I really liked your film," and then he was only talking for like a minute, and then he was like, "So what would you think about doing that kind of work for us?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Because I completely had to switch gears. I was like, "I didn't realize you were talking to me about my career. I thought you were talking to me about hot sauce." But pretty much he just said like, "You should come in for an interview," and I really had no idea what he was talking about. I was like, "They want me to come make like business documentaries for the magazine or something?" I didn't realize like all the overlap in the company, like that he was working on this new project.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the best interview I've ever given, because like it's the only time I ever walked into an interview. I mean, I tried to do my research, but I kind of walked into the interview a little bit blind. Like, okay, so you want me here. I don't even know what this is. Tell me what this is. And it was kind of like, not to, I'm not really like, I'm usually a pretty humble person. So it was kind of fun to like go in with a little bit of swagger into an interview for me.
The Old Spice. Old Spice swagger. I think that would alleviate a lot of the pressure, knowing that they're asking you. It's not you reaching out to them to try to get a position. So that's great. So, and you've done more work with Indy Mogul over the past few years, and that kind of stopped again. And actually, they haven't even posted.
Yeah, so for a while, Indy Mogul, after I left, it just sat dormant because pretty much the company or the division of YouTube that owned it, they owned it for a while to use it as like a lab channel. They wanted to experiment with new features there. And so they would like tell me something to try and see if it worked. And eventually they just didn't want to pay for this anymore. So they let me go, and they just weren't even using the channel for several years. And I think eventually Justin still had great relationships with people at YouTube. And he said, guys, it's just sitting there doing nothing, but it has like 800,000 subscribers or something. Like, why don't you give it back to me? You could sell it back to me, and I'll at least put content on it, and that'll be good. So I think he and Eric did some work on it for a little bit. But as we all know, as you alluded to at the beginning of this interview, we all get older, we all get busier with freelance projects, and we don't have the time that we had when we were younger. And so I think they just weren't able to devote a ton of time to it. So then Tedzim,
Hey, Indy Mogulers.
Indy Mogul.
the president of Aperture Lighting, was a big Indy Mogul fan, and he asked Justin if he could buy it from him. And so he took over the channel, and he thought it'd be really fun to bring on some old people. So he asked me if I would come back and do some stuff for the channel. And I thought, you know, he's pretty much like not really paying me. It's like it's a small amount per episode or per video, so it's pretty much volunteer work. But I would like to get back in front of this audience. And so I made a bunch of content, and eventually it was too much work per week for me with my... I think I was working at the Recount at the time. I was working full time. I had a child. And so we tried to tweak it. We tried to figure out ways that I could do less work. Like maybe I shoot some stuff and you guys edit it, or maybe you write a script for me and I'm just kind of like a news reader. We played around with some concepts, and they were all fun, but eventually it was just, everything was too time consuming. And I think kind of everyone on the channel kind of felt that way. So I think at this moment, there's nothing happening on the channel.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because Ted was doing it for a while, and then I really liked the cinematographer interviews when he would break down lighting, and then someone else took over, and then it just kind of died off. But I miss seeing those. So
well, and it kind of like validates what so many people feel. So many people have anxiety about YouTube and subscribers and watch times and viewership going down over time, which naturally would occur when you have more and more people joining the site and uploading content every minute. It's natural that you're going to fracture the audience even further. And so I think, you know, even a channel that is approaching 1 million subscribers, maybe that's where they're at now. Those 1 million subscribers are not the same as like a fresh 1 million subscribers. They are mostly dormant. They joined 10, 12 years ago, and they're maybe not showing up to the current content. And it's hard to make money on YouTube. We all know this. We all experience this. But I mean, even a big channel with a big following, it's hard to re-energize it. So I mean, I don't mean to be demoralizing. I hope to be more like validating that like what you are experiencing is true for everyone. Right.
Well, I kind of look at that and think about just this podcast, and I call it a podcast, but I feel like it's not really. I don't even upload the audio anywhere. It's just always just a YouTube video. And I approach this completely different. Just, you know, I just enjoy talking with people. And how many times do I have a conversation with someone and think, I wish I could like watch that years down the road. So I just went into it with no expectations. I don't do much with like on the technical side. I just have everything set up and cut it. It's a lot of fun.
Though don't sell yourself short, because I love the whole setup you have, like the set you've built, the way you've positioned all the lighting. I love the motorized slider you have going. I mean, it's a very you've created a very cool podcasting studio. It looks great on camera.
Talk a little bit about Tedzim. Is he really as nice and energetic in real life? Because he seems like the most amazing person.
He is, and maybe he's more energetic in person. I mean, he's just one of those like type A personalities with so much energy that, I mean, he's just always doing and moving forward. And for me, it's almost, I mean, I'm an introverted person, and I get exhausted by you know, that kind of engagement. I think like I can't keep up with him, but I'm in awe of him. I mean, that was kind of the exciting thing about working on Indy Mogul again, was anytime I was talking with him or collaborating with him, the end product was great. He had great ideas. He was pushing me pretty hard to do fun things. But yeah, he's a super smart guy. I feel like I can't remember where he went to college, but I think he went somewhere impressive.
Yes. Yeah, like
and
Harvard.
And he speaks many
or
languages.
something.
And
yeah, because he posted, I feel like it was maybe this past summer, about going back to college. And I just thought,
oh yeah, he's going to get his MBA, I think. Yeah,
I think so. Like, haven't you accomplished enough? Like, I don't know. I don't know. He just has a crazy drive.
And it's fun to see someone like that who is so driven and so ambitious and getting great work done also say, like, I'm a big Indie Mogul fan. Like, I watched this when I was a teenager. And, like, it's you would kind of think, like, oh, someone like that is just, they're just naturally impressive and naturally talented, and they would have no interest in, like, a channel that teaches you how to do filmmaking. So it's validating to hear,
Yeah,
hear that he loves it.
I think the two of you, it was almost like The Odd Couple, and I loved it. Anytime you two were on there together, it was great.
Yeah.
Working with certain people, were you starstruck, or like how are you able to just stay calm and focus on what you need to do?
I do think that is one of my talents and why I feel pretty comfortable, and maybe why people like working with me in this kind of field, like documentary interview sort of stuff, because I do interact with celebrities a lot. I mean, it started way back with my State Farm job. I was lucky enough to like travel to like the NBA All-Star Game or the World Series, and I'd go interview like players because, you know, they'd be involved with some State Farm philanthropic effort or something. And I think one of the first celebrities I worked with at an MLB event was Cal Ripken Jr., and then we also interviewed Mandy Moore. And then like the last thing I did at that job was I got to work with William Shatner. And that was like a real collaborative thing where I wasn't just like interviewing him, but I was actually like directing him and working on an all-day project with him. But even then, I don't think I've ever felt too much starstruckness. I think for me, the way that I view it, I feel like I'm always viewing them through the viewfinder. I don't really feel like I'm there. I kind of feel like I'm so focused on like, does the shot look good, that it's like I might as well be watching them on television. And I've just kind of always felt like that barrier. I guess I'm not trying to impose on them. I'm never someone who wants to ask for a selfie because I think that would just be rude. I've never asked for an autograph. And I think that's the right approach. I think they can feel that I'm not asking anything else of them except for them to just sit down and be on camera. And, you know, it's a calm atmosphere, hopefully, to be interviewed by me. And like I just a few weeks ago, I was shooting an interview of Jeff Goldblum, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I saw you kind of spoiled that.
Yeah. Yeah, I tried to hide it on my podcast by censoring his face, and it didn't work.
Did you think about using like a Gaussian blur instead? Or maybe live and learn, maybe next time more pixels or...
Right. I think bigger pixels would have been the thing to do. Although someone in the comments had a great suggestion that, and I have done this trick before with other things that I really want to make sure are censored, is fake the censor. Like delete the thing entirely or replace it with something else and then put like fake pixelated stuff on top. I've done that with like a license plate or an address or something like on a sensitive document. Like, I want to show you the sensitive document. I want to show you that something has been censored, but I don't even want to tempt fate that someone's going to be able to somehow like reverse engineer these pixels.
Yes.
So let me it's fully deleted and I've put some fake pixels on top. I should have done that with Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah. So when you introduced yourself to him, he said, "You're terrific." Was that correct?
Yeah, he kind of misheard me, I think. Maybe it's just I'm too quiet. I said, "Hi, Jeff, I'm Griffin." And he said, "You're terrific."
I don't even know how I'd respond. I might just go with that the rest of the day.
Yeah, that's good, yeah.
I know we keep jumping topics. I'm just...
No, that's the fun of this podcast.
That's it. It goes where it goes. So what sparked your interest to start doing the streams, like the live streams?
Well, it's something I've been interested in for a while, and the Recount is doing more on Twitch these days and planning to do even more. And because my job keeps evolving there, it's traditionally been I've been like the in-house documentary filmmaker that travels on the road. Sometimes I've been on camera doing pieces. Sometimes I've been primarily an editor. And now we're getting into this thing, and I just thought a lot of people are coming to me with questions about this, and I'm only partially knowledgeable about this. And so I think this would be a good time for me to become much more knowledgeable on the subject, not just, what's technically, it's like I know how to run OBS software and I know how to do the basics, but I would like to learn more about the culture of streaming regularly and being on Twitch. And I have some friends who do it a lot, and so they've been very supportive and answering my questions. And it's just one of those things I'm trying to like practice more, because I realize I'll get better at it. Just like, that was something I learned with Indy Mogul years ago. Is like I wasn't all that comfortable being on camera when I first started. And if you watch like the first Indy Mogul video I ever did, you could see a difference between like the first one and then the one I did like a month later after having done it like several weeks in a row. It just takes not even very much practice, just like a few times to suddenly get the rhythm and like understand the volume that needs to be coming out of your voice to come across on camera as like enthusiastic.
Right. And that's something, that is very difficult. And even just interviewing people with the news or freelance, I'll usually start rolling and just start talking to them just casually, just to kind of lighten the mood and then get into some questions. But that has always been difficult for me. I took a job behind the camera, so I never had to be in front of the camera. And then when I started YouTube, it was, okay, now I need to kind of talk to the camera. And it's strange when no one is actually there in front of you.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and the first thing, it's like by now I'm used to it, but it's like just looking at the lens is a hard thing to do. Like to like memorize a line. Like I was a speech guy in high school and college, and so I was good at memorizing long scripts if I needed to. But the first time you ever try to perform to a camera, you're just like, you get lost in like the blackness of the lens, and it's weird to look at a lens. Mm-hmm. So even just that is hard to get over.
Hence the Indy Mogul teleprompter, which I made one of those. Thank you very much.
And that was another thing I learned. These are the things you just have to try to like figure out if they work for you or not. The teleprompter seemed like, of course I need a teleprompter because I'm having trouble like remembering lines. But then I watched all the videos of me performing to a teleprompter, and I could just see that all of the like intellect and emotion was like dead. Like when you're reading, it's reading. It's not the same as speaking off the cuff. And so I felt like for my own personality, I needed some of that. Like you need that feeling of someone is like searching for the word, and you could see like the gears cranking in someone's mind. And so the teleprompter is good for some things. Like there were times that I did like a live stream back before Twitch. This was back on YouTube, and just like needed to know a little bit of script. Like I was like scripting to elements I was going to play. And if there is a script you have to go off of, like a newscaster, you need a teleprompter. You can't memorize it. And I've used the teleprompter a few times for like CEOs who have to do a 4-minute address to camera, which I don't even recommend. Like as a freelancer, it's always like, I think we should do this as an interview. It'll sound more natural, and I'll just cut to lots of B-roll and it'll be really fun. But every once in a while there are clients that are just like, no, it has to be this script that I wrote, performed to camera for 5 minutes straight, no cuts. And you're like, okay, if that's what we have to do, then that's what we have to do, and we have to do it with a teleprompter.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you ever come back and say, well, what if we have an A cam and a B cam, and then we could cut and maybe hide little things?
Right. And even with one camera, you can do it. You can punch in, and I think we've done that. Even with a teleprompter, someone who's not used to being on camera is going to struggle to get through it. And so I probably would still have to make 5 cuts in a 5-minute video.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of transitions, you mentioned in one of your podcasts that you don't typically use transitions, and I think that's a very news thing, just from what I've learned there. But the one transition that I have seen a lot in news that drives me absolutely nuts is the...
Yes, I knew you were going to say it.
I don't like that. What is that?
I don't like it either. And it's... I'm sure it's across all channels, but I feel like it's especially on like NBC News, like on the Today Show.
Yeah, I worked for an NBC affiliate,
I understand why they do it, and I think there is an important reason to do it. And it's because I realize audiences are less engaged than I expect them to be, and they probably have less media literacy than I'd like them to have. So you would hope that cuts and jump cuts are always visible to the audience and that they would notice these. But I think they don't a lot of the time. And so I think there's an ethical concern in news that if you take a soundbite of Joe Biden speaking and you cut out some fluff, and now, because of course you're going to make cuts because you're the Today Show and you can't let him speak for a minute and a half. You need to cut this down to 15 seconds to say what you're trying to say. So you're going to make 2 cuts in this thing. There's some jump cuts. And if the audience thinks that that's what he actually said, in that order, and doesn't recognize the cuts, that's potentially an ethical problem. So I do understand the dip to white to be like, hey, audience.
So it's more
we
obvious.
Are making a cut right here. Yeah. And I think also, I think news producers just have an aversion to jump cuts. Like, I think filmmakers are more okay with it because jump cuts happen a lot in movies and we're okay with it. I think in television, they just feel like it looks like an error, and we'd rather it look intentional than like an error.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good answer, and yeah, that makes sense.
But I still hate them. Every time I see them, I hate them, and it makes it hard as an editor. At the Recount, one of our kind of founding principles is that we believe that a lot of news just wastes your time and fills time for the sake of filling time. And so a lot of what we do at the Recount is cut down like what NBC said and juxtapose it with some other things. We may take a bunch of cuts from various channels and say, well, this is the story. Cable news tried to fill an hour with it, but we can cut it down to 1 minute and tell you the full story just fine. And we're relying on fair use where, we're being transformative. But it's like if I'm cutting an NBC story, that dip to white, I hate it because it takes away like 4 frames that I could be editing. And a lot of times they make them so tight, like they're still finishing the word as they're already dipping to white. And so I have to do I'll probably have to like cut out a little bit early. Maybe I need to like back up 5 frames and take those 5 frames and stretch them out to be 15 frames. So like the last few frames are like 1/3 speed. Mm-hmm. So I have some tricks to like avoid the dip to white.
Yeah. Griffin, are you ready for your 5 rapid fire questions?
I don't know if I'll ever be ready, but let's try it.
All right. First rapid fire question. Yesterday or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Second question. True or false? Moon landing.
True, of course.
Okay. I'm going to get somebody on my side at some point. Okay, speaking of Final Cut, other than the traditional shortcuts, what would you say is your favorite Final Cut shortcut, or if it's one that you created?
I use the trim tool a lot. It's not very, very exciting, but just to like do a roll edit. I kind of love that the trim tool in Final Cut can do multiple functions depending on where you put it. So it's a very versatile tool.
That's something that I haven't really experimented with. I think I've accidentally clicked on it and was like, what did I do?
Yeah, if you just hit T, then you can do a roll edit across 2 clips, or I think you can also do a ripple edit if it's just one side. It can do a bunch of things.
Okay, question number 4. Between your wife, Peter, YouTube, Recount, everything that you get into, how on earth do you delegate your time?
Not very well. I think I just have to accept that I'm doing a B job of all of those things, of being a husband, being a father, being an employee, and just have to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Question number 5, and I will allow for longer than 10 seconds with this one for you. What drives you?
I think probably curiosity. If the film I made, Sriracha, it was just me wanting to answer questions about something I was curious about. Like, I like this hot sauce. I don't know where it's from. I don't know anything about it. I realize there's a gap between how much passion I have for it and how much I know about it. I'd like to fill that gap. And I think people would like to come along for that ride. And everything I do in my job, I approach as, how can I personally learn from this? Whether it's a new technique I want to teach myself as a filmmaker, or if it's going and telling the news. I think curiosity is important. Just like, I think what drives me crazy in news a lot is people regurgitate a lot of statistics that are not always, maybe they sound good, but they don't always mean a lot. And you see it in camera reviews and stuff too. People will talk about like, oh, this new camera has 24 megapixels and this sensor size, and you're just like, but are you ever going to explain why the sensor size matters? Or like, I always want to take that step back and be like, but let's talk about the details of this camera that impact you in the field. And I think that's just an important step to take. What do these numbers mean, and why do they matter?
And that's why I feel I really have connected with people like you on YouTube, because you take that extra step. The first video I saw from you was your setting up your GH4 for filmmaking. And that was just, oh my goodness. That was an aha moment. Like, this guy
and that was
right
pretty much
here.
me saying, like, half these settings don't matter to you, so let me just take you through the things that do matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I tell people that I learned half of all my camera knowledge I acquired from you, and the other half was from Caleb Pike.
Yeah.
I think just Lumix in general, that's been my go-to. I love it.
And like a video like setting up a GH4 camera, I think the motivation for making something like that for me is, especially when I was doing Indy Mogul videos, I started to feel like I'm learning a lot of things that are valuable. And if I don't share these things, then it's kind of wasted on just me. Like, why did I spend the hours learning this if, like, I'm not going to share it with 100 more people? And they shouldn't have to all do the exact same legwork I did. And so part of it was just like, I feel like this is important to put this knowledge out there, but it's helpful in so many ways. One, I actually watch my own videos sometimes because I forget these things. Like, I don't remember the settings on the GH4, so I'll go watch my own video. It's like, yep, there it is. And two, like, it became a very popular video. I think probably everyone who bought the GH4, or maybe half the people that bought the camera went and watched this video because it has a pretty good number of views on it. And that got the attention of Panasonic. That, I mean, naturally they would notice a video that's popular about one of their cameras. And so I think shortly after I made that video, I moved to New York to go work for Bloomberg. And that's when they said, hey, you should come in for a meeting at our Newark office and we'd like to meet you. And we started talking. And that's when they started telling me about the new GH5 that was coming out in a couple of years. And they brought me on to be like the GH5 ambassador. And so I just say that, like, I've continually learned in my career that putting out a lot of work is a good idea, because you never know. I mean, most of the work I put out doesn't lead to anything, but a video about like how to set up your camera, it's not like I put that out thinking like this will advance my career, but it most certainly did, and led to a lot of great freelance work that I do for Panasonic, and probably led to other freelance work I get because of that. So just a good reminder to, like, when you have that instinct of like, this could be a good video, yeah, go do it, and maybe something fun will come of it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the things that makes you so unique, is the fact that you do the legwork, you learn that craft or whatever, and you share that. I think in this industry, I've run into a lot of people who just keep that tight to their chest. Like, okay, I learned this. I don't want to share any of these secrets with people.
Right.
So, yeah, I appreciate that.
I think the flip side, though, is I feel a lot of anxiety about, like, I don't want to put out anything unless I've spent the time researching it and knowing it fully. And so I think it also stops me from putting out a lot of content that, like, I might want to talk about this thing, but I just don't, especially now that I'm a parent and have a lot of freelance work to finish up and a full-time job to do. There's just a lot of things that I'd love to make that I just will never have time to put in the appropriate amount of time for it. And so I always feel a little bit like, when you see other creators on YouTube making like amazing videos, you're just like, oh, why am I not doing that? There's always that a little bit of like jealousy and feeling lesser than in this field.
Yes. Yeah. That's completely.
Yeah.
I think that sums the whole field up. And I have to say, since I started doing the podcast, I haven't had really any time to watch much YouTube. I just feel like I'm just so consumed by this that I don't have the time to consume other things.
Right. I've always felt like that was the curse of being a creator, that if you're spending time making videos, you don't have time to watch videos. And so invariably a friend of yours will say, oh, have you seen this YouTube channel? It's like the most popular thing. Everyone knows about it. And you're like, well, I don't know about it. I've never seen that. And yeah, it makes you feel like, well, what am I, as a creator, what am I not doing because I'm not aware of the culture? And I feel like a little bit like that dipping my toe into Twitch. Like, well, I just have to do it and people will tell me where I'm wrong, but I don't have time to watch as much Twitch content as other people might or have.
The last question I have for you, and then we can kind of wrap things up.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for someone like me that's just kind of, I feel like I don't really have a niche. It's just, I just love making videos. What advice would you have?
Well, yeah, I feel like we've alluded to some of it throughout this interview, that like recognizing that you'll never be 100% of what you want to be. You have to be comfortable like falling short in the video that you put out, but also in your own just summation, like understanding of yourself. But I think also like finding comfort in like, I know that I'm not the best filmmaker that the people that work with me could be working with, but a lot of people work with me because they enjoy being around me or they have experience working with me. And I mean, so it's like, I think I've just learned over and over and over again that my personality and friendliness and accommodating nature does a lot of the work for why people want to work with me. And I don't have to be the best. I know that I'm not the best at lighting, and I know that other people are better behind the camera. And sometimes I feel like I don't have enough stamina to like hold a camera steady for an hour-long interview or something.
Monopod.
Like I know, yeah. It's like I know I have my failings, and I know I'm not perfect, but I feel well-rounded enough that like I know I can do all of these things at like an 70-80% level, and people are happy to hire me. So I don't know. I think just being comfortable with who you are, and when it comes to like making content, recognizing that like your niche is you. It's doing the things that are uniquely you, and they may not fit into like a perfect YouTube niche that has a huge audience, but you can find value in just like doing it and coming back and appreciating your own work, even if it's getting 1,000 views and not 100 million views.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's something that I feel that I've really been trying to embrace. Just, I mean, I look at YouTube analytics daily, but it's something that I'm just more interested in the numbers than I am about, I just want to keep enjoying what I do. That's just another part of it. So that's kind of how I'm going about everything. So I just want to thank you again for your time. And
of course, yeah.
Your infectiously positive attitude is, yeah.
It's more fun to be positive, I guess.
Yeah, there's no point in, I don't know. Yeah, that's another.
The only problem is that you get wrinkles here from all the smiling.
Where can people find you?
I'm pretty easy to find. If you Google Griffin Hammond, I mean, you'll find my website. You'll find I'm on Twitter and Instagram. You should definitely check out my new Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Griffin Hammond. But you'll also find me on YouTube, where I have a larger audience and a lot more content there.
I just want to also thank my patrons, which that's a whole new thing I'm learning about. Thank my patrons, and also thank Anthony Menzia for the intro and outro music. I appreciate your time. You have a great day. And
you too.
Will you tell Nick I said hello?
Yeah. Great.
Okay.
Thanks for doing this. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, sounds good. Bye.
Bye.
Did you happen to recognize the mic that's in front of you?
Oh, I do. Yeah. That used to be my mic.
Yes.